What if the worst day of your life is actually the moment your life finally starts to make sense? Not right away, not while you're standing in the wreckage, but later, when you look back and realize, if that hadn't happened, I would still be asleep. Tonight, I want you to lie back, breathe slowly, and walk with me into one of those moments. Because if you've ever whispered, "Why is this happening to me?" this story might be the quiet answer you've been waiting for. As you listen, notice something part of you is still holding on to an old version of life, to what should have been, to who you used to be. By the end of this story, that part of you may finally loosen its grip, just enough for a new chapter to begin. So close your eyes if you like. Feel your body sink into where you are, and let's step into the life of a woman named Alara. Alara's hands always smelled faintly of clay, not the cold, dead kind you see in a bag on a shelf, living clay. Clay that had passed through her fingers so many times it almost knew her thoughts. She had a small studio on a quiet street. Nothing grand, a cracked sign, plants that always needed more water than she remembered to give. Shelves lined with bowls, cups, vases, each one just a little imperfect, each one holding some private story. There was a bell on the door that rang a soft, tired chime whenever someone walked in. Kids from the neighborhood, old couples looking for a gift, students who said they were just browsing but lingered over the shelves like they were reading a diary. This place was her sanctuary, her work, her heartbeat. Every morning she opened the shutters, watched the light slide across the floor and thought quietly, I did this. I built this with my hands. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, but she was fulfilled. And somewhere deep inside, she began to tell herself a silent story. This is how it will always be. My studio, my routine, my life. We all do that, don't we? We take a blessing and quietly turn it into a guarantee. Then one night the rain came, not a gentle, sleepy rain, a restless, impatient one, as if the sky had been holding back tears for years and suddenly decided, enough. The sound grew louder, on the roof, against the windows, running down the street like a river that had lost its way. People checked their phones, flood warning, unusual rainfall, stay inside. Alara lay in bed listening. She thought of the studio, but she told herself it would be fine. It always had been. The world had never truly broken her rhythm before, so she rolled over, tried to sleep, tried to ignore the feeling in her chest that something was off. In the deepest part of the night, the water reached her street. It pressed against the doors. It slid through tiny cracks. It crept in across the floor, uninvited, unapologetic. By morning, the rain had stopped. The silence was almost worse. You know that stillness when you haven't seen the damage yet, but something in you already knows that life has been divided into before and after Alara stepped outside and felt it. The ground soft under her shoes, the smell of mud and broken things in the air, neighbors standing in small clusters, whispering, pointing, not quite believing. She turned the corner to her street, and her heart folded. The bottom of her studio door was stained dark, the glass smeared. The little sign that once hung neatly now dangled crooked as if even it had lost its balance. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. The bell above it tried to ring, but made only a sad, heavy sound. Inside, the world she had built was drowned. Clay dust had turned to thick sludge. Shelves were stained and warped. Finished pieces lay shattered or buried in murky water. The wheel she used every day sat there like a relic pulled from a shipwreck. For a long moment, Alara just stood there. There are times when the mind refuses to process reality. It almost waits, hoping the scene will blink and reset. That there was a mistake, that this is a dream, that someone will come in and say, "Sorry, wrong life, we'll put it back." That didn't happen. The first thought that finally formed in her head was simple. Raw. Why? Me. It repeated. over and over, like a mantra of disbelief. Why me? Why my studio? Why now? What did I do wrong? The flood wasn't just water. It felt like an accusation, like the universe had pointed directly at her life and said, "You, I choose you to lose this." Have you ever had a moment like that? A breakup? A diagnosis? A phone call in the middle of the night? One sentence that cut your life in half. You stand there flooded by a wave of questions and none of them have answers. Days blurred. She tried to clean. Her hands moved, but her heart wasn't really in her body. Memories washed over her with every broken piece she touched. That mug was for the woman who finally left her toxic job. That bowl was for the couple celebrating their 10th anniversary. That vase. I made that on the day I finally felt proud of myself, all ruined. The more she tried to fix things, the more another feeling crawled up inside her. It shouldn't be like this. Not, it's sad that it is like this. It shouldn't be. That word is where so much of our suffering hides. Should, shouldn't. As if reality is wrong for being exactly what it is. In many Eastern traditions, there's a quiet teaching. Everything changes. Nothing stays forever. Clinging to how things were is like trying to hold water in your fist. Alara didn't know those words yet. She just knew the ache of clenching her hand tighter as everything slipped through anyway. One evening, when her energy was almost gone, a friend appeared at the door. Her name was Mira. Small, steady eyes. The kind of presence that makes a room feel a little less chaotic without doing anything dramatic. She looked at the mess. She looked at Alara. She didn't rush to offer solutions. She didn't say, "Look on the bright side." She just stepped carefully inside, picked up a fallen vase, and sat with her on the damp floor. For a while, they just breathed. Then Alara's defenses cracked. Words poured out. Anger, grief, confusion. "I worked so hard," she said. "I did everything right. I built this from nothing. Why would life take this from me?" Mira listened. Really listened. When Alara finally fell quiet, eyes empty, voice hoarse, Mira spoke softly. "I don't know why this happened," she said, "and I won't pretend to know. But I do know this. In the traditions I study, they say nothing is random. Not because some cruel force is punishing you, but because every experience carries a seed inside it. A lesson, a direction, a possibility you can't see yet." Alara frowned. "So you're saying this is good?" No, Mira answered. "I'm saying it can become meaningful, later, if you let it teach you. Right now, it just hurts, and that's okay." Something in that honesty went deeper than any cheerful slogan ever could. Nothing is random. The words stayed with her. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, Alara's mind replayed everything again. The water, the ruined shelves, Mira sitting in the mud with her refusing to look away. "Nothing is random," she whispered to herself. "If that's true, then what is this trying to show me?" That question didn't erase the pain, but it shifted the direction of her attention just a little. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" a new question emerged. What could this possibly be asking from me? Somewhere very quietly, a door in her heart opened by a fraction of an inch. Reality, however, didn't wait for spiritual progress. There were forms to fill out, phone calls to make, insurance to deal with. If you've ever gone through a crisis, you know this part. Paperwork while your heart is still bleeding. Alara gathered the documents she had, receipts, photos, whatever she could find. She walked into the insurance office with a small, tired hope that at least this part would be easy. It wasn't. The coverage was partial. Her policy was old. Some of the upgrades she had made in the last year had never been officially added. Her emergency fund was almost non-existent. It wasn't that the universe had singled her out. It was that in quieter years, she had pushed aside the boring practical things, contracts, contingency plans. Later, she'd always told herself, "I'll handle it later." Now, later had arrived. Sitting in that office, listening to the polite voice explain what couldn't be covered, she felt another wave of emotion. At first it was more anger, of course. Of course it isn't enough. Of course everything goes wrong at once. But as the conversation went on, another feeling crept in beside the anger responsibility. Not the toxic kind that blames you for every bad thing that happens. The sober kind that notices where your choices have quietly shaped the impact of events. If the flood was an external force, some of the damage was magnified by things she had left undone. In Eastern thought, people sometimes talk about karma, not as cosmic punishment, but as the simple law of cause and effect, seeds and fruits, actions and ripples. Alara began to see tiny threads connecting past decisions to this present moment. The time she said, "I don't need to update that policy," the night she thought planning for disasters will just attract them, the way she avoided looking at numbers because they made her uncomfortable. None of those caused the storm, but they shaped the size of the wound. Strangely, this realization didn't crush her. It gave her a thin, new strand of power to hold on to. If her own choices had increased the damage, then her future choices could also reduce suffering. She couldn't control the rain, but she could control whether she walked into the next storm with an umbrella, a boat, or nothing at all. That night, she spread out documents on her kitchen table. Not with bitter resentment, but with a new kind of determination. She made lists. She researched policies. She learned about emergency funds, about business continuity, about ways to protect what she loved. Every line she wrote was like telling the universe, "I may not get to choose the storms, but I will choose how prepared I am to meet them." And quietly, another lesson surfaced. What feels like chaos sometimes reveals the places we abandoned our own responsibility. She didn't hate herself for that anymore. She just saw it. Seeing clearly is the beginning of wisdom. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening outside the studio walls. The community had noticed. At first, people just passed by, peeking in with sad eyes. A few offered quick words, "I'm so sorry. Hang in there." But one morning when Alara arrived, there were 3 people waiting at the door. Regular customers, one with coffee, one with a box of gloves, one with a stack of plastic bags and buckets. "We figured you might need help," one of them said a little awkwardly. She blinked. "You showed up for this?" They shrugged. "You were always here for us. Your mugs are where we drink our morning coffee. Your bowls have been at our tables for years. We can't fix the flood, but we can carry some boxes." Word spread. By the end of the week, her little studio looked like a small festival of recovery. A mechanic from down the street brought tools she didn't know the name of. A teacher organized her students to help scrub shelves after class. An older woman brought food, saying, "I can't lift much, but I can make sure you don't forget to eat." Donations appeared. Small envelopes, online transfers. A local cafe set out a jar with her name on it. Alara felt overwhelmed again. But this time it wasn't by despair. It was by connection. She had always thought of her studio as her place, her dream, her work. Now she saw something else. It was a thread in a much larger fabric. Her art had warmed people's mornings. It had held their flowers, their soups, their celebrations. It had quietly witnessed their lives. And now those lives were circling back. In Eastern teachings, there is a beautiful idea: nothing exists alone. Everything leans on everything else. We breathe what the trees exhale. We eat what the earth grows. We drink water that has traveled through clouds, mountains, rivers, and the hands of strangers. Our lives are constantly touching others in ways we never see. Alara felt this truth not as a theory, but as wet footprints on her studio floor, as tired arms lifting soggy boxes beside her. The kindness she had once woven into her work was returning multiplied. She cried that day, not because of the loss this time, but because of the realization, I was never doing this alone. Have you ever had that moment? You think no one notices your efforts. Then something collapses, and out of nowhere, people appear. We don't always see the roots of the seeds we've planted, but they're growing quietly under the surface. There was still one more lesson waiting. After the first wave of cleaning, after the forms and meetings and tears, there was a strange emptiness. The studio needed repairs. Paperwork was in motion. But for the first time in years, Alara's days weren't filled by constant production. No rush to meet an order, no deadlines, no back-to-back classes, just space. At first it felt wrong, like she was being lazy, like she was failing by not doing more. We live in a world that worships constant activity. If we're not busy, we panic. We think something is missing. But in many Eastern paths, they say, when movement stops, truth can finally be heard. One afternoon, with nothing urgent left to scrub, she sat at her small kitchen table with a simple block of clay. No orders attached, no price tag in mind, no customer profile hovering in the background, just her and the clay, like the very first day she ever touched it. She closed her eyes for a moment, felt its cool weight in her hands, listened to her own breathing. Then she began to shape. Time loosened. There was no plan for the piece. It twisted and changed under her fingers, responding to whatever emotion rose and fell. She realized with a soft shock that she hadn't done this in years. She had been making products class as content, but she hadn't simply played it. In the enforced stillness, she found something she hadn't even known she'd lost: the pure joy of creation for its own sake. Day after day, she returned to that small table. Sometimes she made delicate forms, sometimes heavy, rough ones. Sometimes she just pressed her hands into the clay and left them there. Her mind wandered into questions she'd never had time to sit with. Who am I if I'm not the woman with the successful studio? What do I really want to offer the world? Have I been hiding behind my routine? The loss had stripped away a layer of identity. As painful as that was, what remained felt more honest. In the quiet, she began to see that the flood had not only broken her business, it had broken a shell around her heart. Inside, a new vision was forming. She didn't want to just rebuild the exact same studio. She wanted to build something deeper. A space not just for selling pottery, but for sharing the philosophies that had started to support her through this storm. She imagined workshops where people could sit with clay and their emotions at the same time. Spaces where grief could be shaped, where anxiety could be smoothed out under gentle hands, where the teachings of impermanence, responsibility, and interconnection could be felt, not just heard. The flood hadn't come to destroy her life purpose, it had come to refine it. Months passed, repairs were completed, grants came through, the community's contributions reached further than she expected. The day she reopened her doors, the studio looked both familiar and completely new. The walls were freshly painted. There were more plants, but she'd chosen ones she knew how to care for this time. The shelves held fewer pieces, but each one had been made in those raw, honest months of stillness. And on one wall she had placed a simple sentence: "From mud we learn to bloom." People came in curious to see what had changed. They noticed something even if they couldn't name it. The space felt calmer, clearer, more intentional. Alara greeted them with the same smile, but now there was a steadiness behind it, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. She had walked through fear, through anger, through the temptation to stay trapped in "why me?" And she had emerged with a new question: what can I learn from this? And how can that learning nourish others? This is what acceptance looks like when it's alive, not forced positivity, not pretending the flood was great or fun, but recognizing reality as it is and choosing to work with it instead of fighting against it. As the years went on, the story of the flood became part of the studio's DNA. People would ask about the slightly darker line near the bottom of one wall, and she'd tell them, that's how high the water once came. Everything you see here is life after that. Some visitors were going through their own invisible floods, breakups, lost jobs, illness, quiet heartbreaks no one else could see. When they heard her story, something softened in them. If she found a way through, their eyes seemed to say, maybe I can too. And that perhaps was one of the deeper reasons hidden inside her disaster. Her pain became lanterns for other travelers. She had become a living reminder that we can be reshaped without being destroyed. She transformed from that mud into a lotus, rising from her own devastation, with roots still in the same earth, but petals open to a wider sky. Now I want to turn gently back to you. Think of something in your life that felt senseless, unfair, too heavy. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to say it was good. Some things are simply painful. But as you lie here listening, I'd like you to try a small experiment. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" whisper, "What might this be pointing me toward?" Maybe it's showing you where you gave away your power, where you ignored quiet warnings, where you settled for too little, where you forgot your own needs. Maybe it's teaching you about impermanence, that nothing, not even the versions of yourself you're most attached to, can stay unchanged. Maybe it's revealing how deeply connected you are to others, how much help appears when you dare to let people see your vulnerability. Maybe it's inviting you into a season of stillness, a pause that isn't a failure, but a doorway. Not every lesson is visible yet. Some seeds take years to push their first green thread through the soil. But you can choose now to believe in this simple idea. There is meaning available inside your experience, even if you can't see it yet. Even if all you can do today is breathe and survive. You do not have to rush your healing. You only have to stay open to the possibility that your life is quietly weaving something wiser than the story your fear is telling. If this story found you in the middle of your own storm, let it sit with you tonight. Let it walk beside you when you're tempted to say, "I will never recover from this." Remember Alara standing in her ruined studio? Remember the community that showed up with buckets and kindness? Remember the quiet table where she rediscovered her art without pressure? Remember the new space she built from the same ground where everything had once been broken? You are not done yet. There are rooms in your life you haven't walked into, versions of you who only appear after certain doors close behind you. Loss is not the whole story. It is a chapter your soul knows how to read. As you drift toward sleep, let one question stay with you, not as a demand, but as a soft, guiding light. If this too has a purpose, how might it someday shape my compassion, my wisdom, my courage? You don't need the full answer now. You only need enough trust to take the next small step. Thank you for sharing this moment with me here at Moonmind Temple. If this journey whispered something true to your heart, let it be a companion on difficult days. And if you feel called, share your own story with others, because somewhere out there, someone is standing in their own flood, waiting to see proof that a new beginning is still possible. For now, breathe in, breathe out. Let your body soften, let your thoughts float by like leaves on a gentle river. The storm has already happened. This moment is the calm where a new meaning quietly begins.